Welcome to the show. My name's Toby Salgado, and I'm here to help answer a question that we all have. How do I build my business faster and better? Each week, we're going to dig in and uncover what are some of the smartest minds in real estate are doing and have discovered so that you can implement those tactics in your business today. If you want to get more tips and ideas like the ones we're going to uncover in this episode, I would hope that you do two things. One, go to our site, superagentslive.com, and subscribe to the show on iTunes. And second, download my free ebook called How to Sell. Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first $1 million in real estate. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
We all know the best kind of referral is one from our sphere or farm. But how do we stay top of mind? Now, most people, they take a three-pronged approach, right? They door knock on their farm, they call people, and they mail them. Most people fall down by not getting to their people, their sphere, their farm. They don't get them engaging content. And look, sure, we can list them a postcard, or we can send them an article that we think is going to be of interest to them. Our new sponsor, Discover Publications, takes that one step further. For just slightly more than the cost of a stamp, Discover Publications creates a completely customized newspaper. Now, they'll go out and they'll curate content, or you can create your own. All of my sponsors are white labeled. Now, prior to having them on the show, I called some of Discover Publications clients, and I talked to this one guy, and he does some interesting things. He'll go out and interview restaurants that are in his farm, in his sphere. He creates a write-up. He, interestingly enough, resells advertising in his own newspaper to his trusted network, whether that's the plumber or the insurance agent. And by the way, this guy has 60% market penetration. He told me the paper has cemented those numbers. If you're interested, go check out discoverpubs.com. Let me know what you think. Today on the show, we're doing something a little bit different. Everybody comes on this show and they say, to be successful, go find yourself a niche, right? That could be through geographic farming. You can have beachfront houses. That could be your niche. Today's guest is completely opposite that. He has a residential division. He has a commercial division, and he has an investment division, and he is crushing it. So I am thrilled to announce and to have on Charlie Butler. Charlie, I absolutely demolished that intro.
No problem.
Hey, Charlie, thanks for taking the time out today.
Hey, no problem, Toby. Thanks for having me.
So listen, I given the audience just a brief overview of your very rich background, but maybe take a minute, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that you haven't been in the real estate world for a huge amount of time, and tell us about your business.
No, I started real estate fairly late. I started in 1999. I had been in the I'd been in the retail industry before that. I actually managed jewelry stores, and so we started in retail. Started in real estate. Excuse me. Got my license, and I kind of did what everybody else did. I just went out and started prospecting and started just selling residential houses, and it was it went good from the first year for me. I think I sold by myself. I sold 58 houses the first year.
Oh wow!
Which was good, and made more money than I ever made in my life, and so that was great. So I keep that going like that for 2-3 years. I hire, just about 3 years. I hire an admin, and during that time, I'm as I'm prospecting, I'm meeting investors, and mainly guys that are single family investors, and so I'm selling them some properties, and it's a nice sideline. Well, I get introduced by I called a for sale by owner, and it was an investor, and me and him went to lunch. Are still friends today. We've done a little business over the years, never that much. But he introduced me to a guy who at the time owned 40 properties. Still, I mean, it was nice, but nothing tremendous. We started working together, and between 2000 and 2007, he built to over 400 properties.
Holy smokes.
And plus, and that doesn't count the stuff we sold him that he turned around and he turned around and resold. That just counts. I'm just counting these rentals there. And so as that first started getting going about 2002, I start thinking, hey, I kind of like this investment side. While the price point's lower, I can sell so many properties. And I picked up a couple more pretty good investors since then. There's no inspections. It's usually cash. And if it's financing, I never have to worry about it. They've got the money. So at the end of 2002, I tell my assistant, I had one assistant then, and I said, we're going to go all out. We're going to drop residential. And at the time we did. We went all investment. And my business tanked. In fact, my broker, who was a good friend, still is a good friend, he's trying to talk to me all year. He's saying, man, you've got to get back. He said, you cannot do just investors. You can't do just investment property. I said, this is going to work. And obviously my wife wasn't happy, my income being cut in half all of a sudden.
Right.
And that didn't go well at home either. And so about September, that straight down starts headed back up again. And by December, January, we were crushing it. And we had a huge year in 2003. Started hiring people from there. And so as I hired people, we got back in the residential again. And, I hired people for both. And so, that keeps going. And I had one of my residential investors who owned a 32-unit riverfront high-rise, 34-unit, I think. And he said, hey, if you ever know of anybody, I wouldn't mind selling that. And so it turned out I was working with an investor from New York. I started advertising all over the country by that time. I had investors coming in to Evansville, Indiana, believe it or not, to buy properties. And so he said, if you ever know of anybody, so I turned him on to this guy, and I make what to that time was my biggest sale, make a $1.8 million sale. And from that, which was, for our area is nice, and was the biggest commission check I'd ever had. And I thought, I wonder if there's anything to this commercial stuff. And so I think I kind of jumped ahead, but this was still about 2003, and there was this new thing that I discovered called LoopNet, and they didn't have many subscribers then. They weren't huge like they are today. So I go to a client of mine, and I said to him, who had another apartment complex, I said, let me list your apartment complex. And he said, we've talked about this before, and I've told you I want too much money. You could never get it. 40-unit apartment complex in Evansville, Indiana, town of 150,000 people. And I said, well, Dave, what do you want? And he said, well, I want $950,000. Now, for those in bigger areas, that sounds cheap. At the time, that sounded completely ridiculous.
Huh.
Okay. And so he says, but you can list if you want to. So I listed strictly the idea of putting on this new thing I saw called LoopNet and seeing what it would do. I had 3 full-price offers within 2 weeks, people who had never seen the property. And, of course, all from California. We sell it full-price cash. and that got us taken off. That we took off there into multifamily. We expanded out into net lease properties after that, and that's really our two main specialties. But I've got, there's two of us that work on that. We've got people that just work on the investment side of it, and we've got people that just work on the residential side.
Okay, there's a lot there, Charlie. So I understand now. Why you are in. So you start in residential, you're prospecting, however, whether it's on the phone or knocking doors, and let's say you're knocking doors. I don't know. I
never knocked on doors.
So
I'm just be honest.
Okay, that's great. So when you say prospecting, what you're just calling your sphere of influence?
I would, I call my sphere, but here was the thing. I didn't know anybody. My first year of those 58 houses when I started, one of them was, I know everybody always says we'll start with people you know. For some reason, and this was not smart on my part, but I decided, well, I'm not going to use my friends. I'm just going to go out and I'm going to do this. The only person I knew at all, and I didn't even know her really, was my wife's secretary's mother. That's how tenuous the connection was of that first year, those first 58. She was the only one that I had any kind of connection with. Everybody, I go to my broker when I start, and who was a big producer himself and still is today. I said, Wayne, how do I get leads? And he said, well, when I started, I called expired listings, and it worked. And so I just started calling expired listings. Now we're in a market average sale price at 120, 130.
Yeah.
And so I'm calling people from like 80 to 150. And man, I'm listing houses. I mean, it's going great. I'm thinking, this is fantastic. I'm getting buyers off of that. And so my broker comes by one day and he said, man, it looks like you're doing great with those listings. But he says, how come you never list anything over 150? I said, and remember, I'm brand new at the time. And he says, and I said, well, Wayne, I said, people like you, and I named a couple other experienced big producers. I said, you guys got those $300,000 people locked up, and everybody's calling them. He goes, no, he said, you don't understand. He said, you're calling the people everybody calls. Everybody's intimidated to call those people, and nobody calls them. And so we started calling some of the bigger ones, and they were much easier, actually.
Amazing, man. And I don't want to go down this hole right now, but I hear that all the time. I hear that all the time when people, with people that I coach, right? I'm like, hey, let's go target those $7-figure, $1 million properties. And they're like, oh man, in that, that neighborhood or that resort, these two agents have them all locked up. And I'm like, they don't. You think they do, but hold on. Let's not get there right now. So let me just unpack your timeline. So you start, when you started at residential, you started
right
where you knew, and you started calling expireds, and it works for you. Then you stumble upon this investor, right? So you stumble upon this investor. He's got 40 houses, and all of a sudden you start working with him, and you turn his 40 houses into 400 houses. Now, here's why that is appealing to you and to pretty much everybody out there is because instead of making one phone call, finding a prospect and one phone call, one person, one sale. When you work with an investor, it's much more like working with it's B2B instead of business to consumer, right? You meet this one guy, you develop a relationship, and all of a sudden you have his stream, his book of business. So for you, you're like, okay, I'm going to double down on this. And then all of a sudden you sell, you're selling $150,000 houses. You sell the $1.8 million multifamily, and you're like, okay, to me, Charlie, now, certainly you are a very successful guy. It's worked for you. But, again, you were sort of anti what everybody else is. I mean, this is what you were doing, sort of following, a bright, shiny object syndrome, right? You see something, it looks like it's going to work, and all of a sudden you go to run towards that. Is this just because you're good? I mean, or is this some of this is just luck?
It's a little bit of both. I do think that I worked hard, and I'm not not going to be have false modesty. I know I've got talent for this. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Right.
that's. But yes, part of it was being in the right place at the right time. But there was another part, and we kind of stopped in 2003. But as you go forward, if someone watched my progression, they watched me move in and out, and I was, for most of the time I was right. I was fortunate. They watched me move in and out of. Okay, we're going to go heavier on commercial right now because this is the time to go. We're going to go heavier on the investors right now, or we're going to get real heavy. Residential is still a good piece of my business, but it never got back to be the focus again. Okay,
Interesting.
It really was investors and commercial from there on out. And so we were fortunate. And you mentioned a minute ago, Toby, about the $1 million properties. It's just you get $1 million, $3 million, $4 million, whatever. Those people overall are easier to work with than the $80,000 house. That's
Why? Why would you say that, Charlie?
Well, this is on the commercial side, it's easy because this is all business to them. There's no emotion involved.
Right.
And you get that $80,000 first-time home buyer, or whatever the number is in your particular market. There's a lot of emotion involved there.
Yeah.
And it's tough to take that out. And the home inspection. I mean, let's face it. There's times if you just read a home inspection, you were never at the house. You think you might as well burn the house down.
Right. Yeah.
And nothing against the home inspectors because there's some great ones out there. And people just get more emotional on that level, and it's true with residential too. The people that are buying the $500,000 houses are easier to work with, and it's usually the financing. The financing on the higher end is easier. You've usually got somebody, on a lot of those houses that we're talking about on the lower end. I mean, they're just barely qualifying.
Right.
It's not the case on the other end.
So let's talk about emotion for a second. But there's just so much to your story that I want to try to attack it in a systemized fashion. But if we talk about emotion, right? So you're working with two groups who have no emotion, right? So if I'm an investor, and look, and that's my background, Charlie. I've millions and millions of dollars of properties I've bought and sold.
Right.
And it's just a deal to me. I don't care. I don't, it's just do the numbers work. So there's no emotion in working with an investor. And if you, on the commercial side of it, again, that's an investment, a piece of property. So, it becomes just numbers. How important is that for people to try to work with people that are not emotional and how, because it's sounding to me like if people that you work with are not emotional, it makes the deal easier in every regard.
It makes it so much easier because first off, they're going to let you do your job.
Right.
They're going to let you go in. They're usually going to they're also a lot of these deals they want us to go in first. They want us to analyze the property. I've got $1 million deals that I've sold out there in other parts of Indiana and Kentucky, especially where I'm licensed, is clients have never seen the property.
Mm-hmm.
They pay me. Me or someone on my team goes over there. We take a video of the property, we take a video of the area, and send it back to them. And then, it's either, and of course, they're looking at the numbers the whole time anyway. So it's either, yes, that'll work for me, or no, it won't. And there's, and it makes it so much easier because the hard part with a lot of guys, if there is a hard part, I don't think this is hard, but the hard part with the guys with no emotions is the guys that have no niche. Because you get the guys, and I've got one who has been a fabulous client, is actually my largest client, and who says, just bring me deals and make me money.
Right.
And he is into everything imaginable. Banks, liquor stores, restaurants, hotels.
Holy smokes.
Ice machines. The ice machines you see at the convenience stores. He owns one of the big companies that own, and I could go on, just commercial or multifamily real estate, single family real estate, and on and on. But his thing is, he said, if it makes money and if it's going to make money long term, he's in. But everybody that I've seen that has been successful, and here's a good test: the guys that survived 2008 and 2009, when everything crashed, those were the guys that had no emotion, about it. A lot of guys that went in and thought, okay, we'll make our money. We're okay. We're paying too much for it, we know, but we like it, and we'll make our money when we sell it. As Toby, you said, you're an investor. As you know, you don't make your money when you sell it.
You make your money when you buy it.
Make your money when you buy it.
Yeah.
And so those guys that took the backwards approach to it, a lot of them didn't survive 2008 and 2009.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate, but the guys with no emotion that could just go in there and turn it. And actually, I'll give you another quick example. I got an investor, single family, almost strictly rehabs. He maybe owns 50 rentals. He calls me March of 2009, and we all know how ugly that was, right then. And that was. Oh yeah,
Lehman failed. Banks are failing. Everybody's scared. I mean, the world is melting.
Yeah, stock market's at 6,800 or something like that. I mean,
down from 11,000.
So. And here's this one guy, and this is, and these are the guys that have got it, maybe, or that just, they think. He calls me. He said, "Look," he said, "I want you to go out, and I want you to find all the houses." And he's a single family rehab. He said, "I want you to find all the houses you can find, and I want to buy them." He said, "It's the only stuff I can resell." I said, "Dave, nobody's buying anything right now."
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah." He said, "But we're talking about buying right." He said, "Yes, they will." He said, "Because if we can buy them right, I can price them right." And he went out. I don't know. In the space of a few months, we did, 30 or 40. He put a couple crews together, did 30 or 40 rehabs, and I mean they sold. Every one of them sold.
Yep.
And he'd been able to. The secret was he'd bought it right. He was able to rehab it real nice, and still keep it nice and make a nice profit. And he made. If he were on here right now, he would tell you, 2009 was one of his best years.
Well, I'll tell you a really quick story, and I'll get back to your story. Late 2009. I found a deal. I'm in San Diego. Up north of me is Sacramento, a little bedroom community outside of Sacramento. A builder building a community. He owed the bank $73 million. So, and it just like he couldn't get any more money. Whatever. He went Chapter 8. I was able, me and a friend, me and 4 people, we were able to buy that property, that note. A $73 million note we bought for $3.2 million, and again,
oh wow!
And I never even saw it. I knew what it was. It was 525 fully developed lots. It was like 67 houses. Most of them were built. Some needed some finishing, and then another 420 paper lots. So we knew, right? If they owed $73 million and it made sense to the banks, then if I could buy it for $3, right? We made money the day we closed on that deal. But So I get that. Let me back up for a second. What you said earlier, Charlie, you said, hey, with these investors, a lot of times they don't even see the property. We go in first and we analyze the property. Now there's a danger in that. And I want to get to how to find these guys, but here's the danger. And I've turned a lot of agents, especially during that time period, late 09, 2010, when nobody's buying anything, I turned them into just scouts for me, right? Because I said, hey,
right.
I was a lot like that guy. This is kind of what I'm looking for. Go out, and if it makes sense, I'll buy it all cash, close in 10 days, no questions asked. So I turned a bunch of these people into scouts. How does, again, that's a trap. Would you agree with that, Charlie? For a lot of people, that's a trap.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's you've got. I think you've got to be working with somebody that has a high level of trust in you. I mean, you've developed a relationship there because you definitely, when you're doing stuff, when you're working that way, and when you're working with that much trust, it needs to be the right person.
Right. Well, so I had 3 people that I was working with, and this is what I did. I literally never looked at a house until I had it under contract. I gave everybody a check, a signed check, and I said, go out, put my name on the contract. I don't care what you do. If it pencils out to you, and I'd look at the numbers they gave me beforehand, and I'd say, okay, that's fine. Go make an offer. This is what I want to offer. They'd offer it. They'd sign my name to the contract. They'd get into the contract and say, hey, Toby, we got this deal. And only then would I get in my car and go look at it. And there's lots of times where I'd say, okay, look, it's not right. There's too much work here.
Right.
So how, Charlie, you've done a great job at finding these investors. That is a struggle for most people. Charlie, you were in your city and you said, I didn't know anybody. There's lots of people that are in that situation feeling like they don't know anybody, much less some guy who's got a pile of cash who wants to go buy money. Go buy houses, property.
Right.
How do you go? How did you do it, Charlie? How did you go out and not only find these people, but then develop relationships with these people?
Well, totally part of it was networking. We go to we go back to the story the guy was telling you where we took, he had 40 houses. Within less than 7 years, he had 400.
Yeah.
Well, he and I started having breakfast every morning.
Got it.
And we had started having breakfast in a restaurant that was owned by the guy I was just telling you about, that where I just, the guy who just would send me, would tell, hey,
the ice machine
go
guy.
look at this deal.
Yeah.
If it, take a video, let me see it, and we'll rock and roll if it works. And but the thing was, a lot of networking. And once the word got out, hey, this guy, and just because they were doing well, suddenly I kind of got that reputation. Hey, this guy can find stuff nobody can find. Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily that. It was, I was telling them about it. I know, some agents were, they had their buddy, they were telling about they're buying it themselves. And I saw early on, I said, I can't buy these things because it's going to be a conflict of interest, and I'll lose a lot of these guys' business. So, I only own a few rentals myself. I was never able to get into real estate the way I would have wanted to, at least on a local level, because of that.
Mm.
And so then as things changed a little bit, we did more commercial. I started and I just, after LoopNet, I tested this out. I took out an ad in I took out like a 3 or 4 line classified ad in the LA Times, and my phone blows up. I would highlight one property. Did the same thing in San Jose in the Mercury News. Actually, I can in your San Diego paper.
Yeah.
Who's Union Leader, I think. Is that it?
Union Tribune.
Union Tribune.
Yeah.
I sold and I can't remember the, well, I wouldn't say the name anyway, but I sold a 24-unit building to them, who they called me off an ad, and those things were costing me like $300 a week or a weekend or something.
So
And
hold on. So the ad you're just talking about, you're talking about just a little tiny ad. You're not talking about like a quarter. You're talking about just a little tiny.
no, I'm talking about classified. I'm talking about a classified ad in the
yeah.
real estate section, a 3-4. And I would feature one property. Now remember, our prices, what they were seeing in there. I mean, our prices in L.A. and San Diego and San Jose, that sounded dirt cheap.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, I would have guys call me and say, about say a small apartment complex, it was $500,000, and like a 20 unit. He said, I don't want anything in a bad area like that. I said, this is in a really nice area. Well, it can't be if it's 20 units for half.
Right.
In Los Angeles, and so I said, and so in fact, we actually, some of those guys, a lot of those guys had to use lenders that we worked with out here, because their lenders in California thought these have got to be bad properties at these prices. And you remember we're going up. At the time, we're going up 30% a year at that time, and it was crazy. So yeah, we had that, but yeah, these were just small classified ads. In fact, we're getting ready to do that again. We haven't done it much in the last couple of years. We've picked up some nice listings here recently, and we're getting ready to start that again. And also, besides the print, we're going to do online.
Yeah.
And we're also going to do the Chinese and Korean version of the paper.
Interesting. That is very interesting, Charlie. So, okay. Let me break in here with a message from our sponsor. Our sponsor, Discover Publications, will create a customized, branded, 12-page newspaper that will be sent out to your farm and sphere. Now, this paper is cheaper than you think. For slightly more than the cost of a stamp, you can start sending out curated content and always stay top of mind. Never lose a deal again because that prospect just happened to forget that you were in real estate or misplaced your number. Go check them out at discoverpubs.com. There's so much stuff I want to ask. I want to ask you about, what you did in 2009. But before that, today, right? Today's look, if we go back to, you started in 99, that you started at the beginning of a boom, right? Of the boom that lasted until 2007. Right. And really, if you were an agent at that time, or if you were an investor, you really couldn't, you could buy something and, a month later, it was worth 30 grand more than you're making $1,000 a day. So I kind of understand how you were successful during that time period. What about today, right? The world is different today. Lending is much more, money's harder to come by. What if somebody wants to model Charlie Butler? What could they do? I mean, tell us where they would start to sort of model your career.
Well, I think, as you and I were talking off the air, Toby, I've been told by a pretty successful broker that I've got a non-duplicatable model, but I don't think that's true. I think that if somebody wanted to do it today, first off, you're going to have to do it different because of financing. And if you started out the way I did it on the investment side, there's a whole. Used to, in that time, you could buy a house out here. You could buy a house in, we'll just say an average to below average neighborhood without getting into any legal stuff here.
Okay.
So
sure.
$20,000, put another 20 into it, and sell it for $79,900. Now, so basically doubling your money. A lot of those people that in that 80,000 down range, there's no financing products for them anymore.
Right.
As we know, back then there was all kinds of no money down, stated loan programs, all kinds of stuff that is gone away. So that part of the market's gone away. But there are a lot of investors. There are probably, it seems like, there are as many investors as ever wanting either go in rehab. You rarely ever hear me say the term flip, because I've been doing this long enough when flip was a bad word, and I can remember when the government looked at that as a different way than what we think of it today.
Got it. Okay.
So rehab properties, and you got a lot of guys doing rentals right now. What's changed for us is we get guys from around the country anymore, just like we always did, and that's coming back big for us. But we get a different kind of investor now. We don't get the guys that his house was worth. And you'll be familiar with this being from California, Toby. His house was worth $300,000 when he bought it 15 years ago. It's worth $1.5 million now.
Yeah.
And so we don't
he's
get
got
those
$1 million line of credit on it.
Yeah, he's got all that equity in there, pulling that equity out, putting big down payments down. We get a lot of guys. We get guys with a lot of cash. That's there's a lot of people that set out 04, 05, 06. They just thought it was too much. That things were going up too fast, and they took, and probably since 2010, really, they've taken advantage of some deals, and so we get more of that. We get more groups coming in looking for. We used to never. It was rare, and I mean, we were with people from California, especially the West Coast. It seemed like that got to be our niche. We were probably from 04 to 06. We were with them 3 weekends a month. We had somebody here, and I can only think of one group that didn't buy. But you're getting like larger groups. You're also getting the equity funds coming in.
Yep.
We represent a couple of them. This is still really not their thing. But they'll wind up in Evansville and they're doing $1 billion deal, and they got to take some stuff to get the stuff they really want. And we know the property we got to throw in stuff, but we're still fine with that. We've been able to establish some good relationships that way. That's helping us in some other areas too.
So,
sorry, but and we veered off into student housing and do a lot of different directions.
A lot of different stuff. So again, if somebody, I know that there's somewhat some non-duplicatable stuff with what you've done, but somebody can kind of follow your path. Could they, instead of looking for that, I totally agree with you that that's what we saw in 2010, 2011. We started to see hedge funds that could, stock market was still doing terrible. They couldn't make money anywhere. So people were going out and raising money, raising those little funds, 5 million, 10 million, and that's what killed the for lack of a better word, the flip market here in San Diego. Is when I was doing it, I'd wanted to make it $40,000 to $100,000 on every deal I did, and then it got to where what was the meat that was there was like 20, and I was like, I'm not willing to take the risk for $20,000, but a hedge fund was. So,
right.
So. Is that maybe an avenue? Could an agent out there that says, "Hey, I want to work with investors. I number one go out and I've identified a good property. Right? You got to find a deal. You got to come to me with a deal." So somebody goes out and finds something that they believe is a deal. They do all the analysis on it. Could they literally start calling? Identifying these funds and start calling them and saying, "Listen, I have this deal and this is what I do." Is that viable? Do you think for someone out there? That's possibly viable. Still, there are still only, when you're talking about the $5-10 million funds, there's all kinds of those you can find. But when you get talking about, I'm talking more about CalPERS,
the Blackstones and the Starwoods, and America's Homes for Rent, people like that. You're almost going to have to go in through the back door. You're going to have to find, which we've got a contact with, with one of their asset management companies, to get to them, and that was, and we developed some good relationships that way. Now, of course, as we've seen lately, you take Blackstone, for example. I think they're down to 5 markets now that they're buying. Starwood is in Europe now because Europe's going through, the same thing that we went through in '08 and '09. And so I sent a large deal, about a $34 million deal that looked good to my Starwood contact the other day, and he was like, this is fine, but he said we're not buying much in the U.S. because we can buy so much more in Europe right now.
Right. And look, if you talk about those kinds of names, Blackstone, Starwood, or working with CalPERS, or those are giant. If people feel intimidated trying to sell, in your market, remember you said people were scared of calling the $300,000 houses.
Yeah.
People are scared of calling calling on the $1 million. They're not going to call it Blackstone. That's just crazy. Just the people's mindset is they just don't have that. Okay, so in cracking the.
But some of the most fun I've had is, and forget about the money I've made off of it. Like, yes, the Starwood guys, before I met him, I was so intimidated. We had a tremendous time together and still do.
Yeah, look, people are people. That's and a lot of people that are in sales, they or haven't had success, they cannot wrap their minds around that. They think somebody who has a $5 million or $10 million net worth is like not regular, which they are.
Yeah, and you look at. But it also with those guys, and they take it all. We're talking about investors with no emotion, but you take to a level of like the people we've been talking about on the hedge and equity fund side. You get all the information to them, they plug it into their model, and they don't need to look at the property. If the information you send them works,
yep,
they'll do it. If it don't work, it doesn't matter what you say, how nice that property is, whatever.
Yep.
They don't care.
Yep.
It didn't work in their model.
It's green light or go or no go. That's it.
That's exactly right, Toby.
So Charlie, again, this show is what my goal for this show is. We really want to help people. Number one, build their businesses, but also work on their mindset. And so we're kind of touching on all that stuff right now. We've never really had, we talk to a lot of residential people. You're sort of the first person to come on that has a background in commercial. So,
okay. And
I have had people say, hey, Toby, go and find some commercial guys. So I don't know. I don't even know what question to start off with. But, there's lots of competition in the real estate market. Is there less so in commercial?
There is less in commercial. The advantage that, and since it sounds like your audience is probably more residential guys.
Yeah. And
one thing that if I was a residential guy, I'd look in commercial because and I want the commercial guys to excuse me. There are hard workers out there, but commercial guys are lazy.
Interesting.
And, they're 5 day a week people. They stop at 5 o'clock, and they also were residential. And it sounds like I'm slamming all of them. I'm not. I'm talking about a lot that I've dealt with but the residential, and they don't do the marketing like we do. I market these things just like the way I would a residential property, and it's I spend money on them just like I would a residential property. And I see so many guys just go put a sign up and maybe throw it on LoopNet, and that's and they're done.
Right.
And they hope it sells.
Right. So let's talk about commercial for a second and what that is, right? So you can have strip malls, you can have stores, you can have multifamily. Just give us an overview of what commercial is, right? It's like help put a box around it so people can understand it. That's a tough question to answer because just as you said, and we can expand to so many other areas. It is everything from multifamily, net lease properties, shopping center, and things like that.
net lease properties, multifamily, shopping centers, they're pretty straightforward. They're pretty easy to understand. And, you get in stuff like, industrial. And I don't know why. And Toby, I'm going to tell you, don't ask me any questions about industrial because I've never been able to wrap my head around it. Okay. It's just it's probably not a different animal, but I've got that mental block with industrial, and so I'm that's one thing I've never been good at, and just and I refer it out in anything that I get. Actually, we're working on. In fact, my analyst is, I've got a call when we get off here to make. We're working on some farm ground for some clients from Florida, which just to tell you, it'll probably be a $3.5 to $4 million deal.
Nice.
And we just we're trying to come up with a good per acre price right now. Now, I know that's probably not true, but to me, that's commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, that's revenue producing property.
Right. So again, if somebody says, "Man, I love Charlie's story," I'm going to outwork all those other guys out there because they're lazy. They only work 9 to 5 and Monday through Friday. How how do they go about it, Charlie? I mean, where should they start? Should they go start pulling property tax records for shopping centers and how would somebody crack this commercial market?
The first thing I would do would be you're gonna have to working with investors, and you're probably gonna have to start with obviously you can, as you said, you can go to tax records, you can go to the assessor, wherever you want to go to, however it is in your area, to find the people that own these properties. But you know what? It is very much, a good old boys and girls club. And it's you've got to prove yourself to get in there, and you're probably, unless you know somebody that can get you in the door, you're probably going to take some deals to show that you're serious, that you're just not, you're just not looking to list their properties, because let's face it, most of these guys like that, they don't have as high opinion of realtors as what we've got of ourselves.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
They they think we're overpaid. They think we make a lot for not doing a lot. They're good guys, but you take them deals. You prove you want to work with them.
Yep.
And that you're serious about this. And that's and we're, especially when we're talking on the investment commercial side. You got guys out there that you don't prove that, or you tell them you're going to be loyal, or you're going to do this, and you don't do it. There's not going to be a second chance.
I agree, man, and that's what I said earlier. I said, hey, go out for me, right? Go out and find a deal and bring it to me, and all of a sudden you're, now I'm going to feel that you have value. Is there a way? I mean, so look, this goes back to what you said earlier and what you did, right? You networked. You had breakfast with this guy every day, and it just so happened it was in a restaurant of a different guy. And we have to start wrapping up here, and I wish we had more time, but where could people start? There's lots of places to network, but where do you think you can? What's the best place? I mean, how do people go out and network in the right pool?
Oh man, it's
a hard question. I know. I mean, I'm asking
that is a hard question. I know I fell into some luck. I called the right for sale by owner sign. But as far as answer your question, I mean, chamber of commerce events. If you're a golfer, the country club. I have something. My wife, she used to get mad at me. She'd say, "You spent all afternoon on the golf course." And she said, wasn't a very productive day. I said, no, I only sold about $4 million worth of property today. because you know
Take
how
that.
that goes. You're standing out there, and I always play with investors, always. Oh, hey Charlie, I've been meaning to call you. That property over on 123 Main Street. Hey, how much is that? And tell me something about that. And I say, oh, Charlie, that reminded me. I want, and you know how it goes. And then it goes, And so pretty soon I've, you've got that whole thing going. In fact, quick story, those three investors, I played with different ones, but three regular big investors I played with. And they had a rule. Everybody except me had to turn their phones off on the golf course. But the only calls I could take were from other agents or someone if it had to do with their deals. If it had to do with their deals, I could take the call, but anybody else, I'd tell them I'd call them back.
Right. That is
so. And the rest of them had to have their phones off. If their phone rang, the agreement was when they come to the next water hole, they threw their phone in the water.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, you're not going to. So let me real quick, and again, we have to start wrapping up. I wonder if, in terms of networking, in terms of building relationships, I wonder if somebody, this is kind of maybe a back way, right? So if they went and in their city found like the big HVAC guys, right? The people who, these companies who work on the air conditioning systems,
yes.
for these, so maybe if you go in there and start to develop relationships with those guys know the owner, right? If it's a smaller owner. So maybe working through the trades, you can then get intros to some of these guys and to find a deal, and then to go out and find an investor.
That's a great idea, Toby. And I'll tell you what I did as when I very first started in the business. This was on the residential side. And you could duplicate this on the commercial side. I went and I called one mortgage brokers, and I said, hey, look, if you got some people that are pre-approved that don't have a realtor, I'd love to work them. And I'll tell you what, I said, I'll do everything I can to see that deal comes back to you.
Right.
And I developed some great relationships that way, and did a lot of business at the start. They're going to give you the crap deals, but they're pre-approved, and that's okay. That gets you in the door with them.
Yep.
And you go on from there. And you could do the same thing by calling on commercial lenders.
I love it. And then look, the other thing too is these title guys out there, they tend to know like everything. So maybe dig into your go form a relationship with some of the title guys out there, and go take them to lunch because they might have some inside track on what's happening.
Anybody like that is, anybody's title, appraisers have been good sources for me. A couple of them.
Yeah.
A couple of appraisers that we use a lot. They'll say, hey, you ought to talk to so and so. He's bought this and he's bought that.
Awesome, Charlie. Hey, man, you have dropped nuggets all the way through this. I love it. Here's my last question I ask everybody, especially guys like you who you have such a rich and varied career. Here it is. I am an inspiring agent. I have $25. What book should I go buy right now?
Are you gonna be a residential agent at the start?
Yeah. Let's say yeah.
Millionaire Real Estate Agent. By Gary Keller.
Yeah, that was easy. I need to start eliminating that book because I get it too much.
Well, and as you and I off air were talking about Mark Spain, top producer in the country, and I just had Mark in for a panel, and Mark got the question, the top 3 books, and he said Millionaire Real Estate Agent, The One Thing, and the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
There you go. I love that E-Myth. That's a great one.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
And real quick, a fourth one that if I could add is, I think you mentioned him earlier, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
How can you? That is part of the stable. I mean, that should be the corner. Those 2 books, Millionaire Agent and Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, should be like the cornerstone of your library. Hey,
I agree, Toby.
Charlie, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Where can people find you? And listen, I encourage all my audience when they hear a great episode like this to reach out and say thank you to you. So maybe your Twitter handle, or where can people reach out and find you, Charlie?
I'm on Facebook. Just ask Charlie Butler, or you can go to charliebutlerteam.com, or call my office even at I'm the majority owner of the Keller Williams office in Evansville, Indiana, and it's 812-422-4096. And I appreciate you having me on, Toby.
Hey, thank you. That's I'm the guy who benefited, and so did my audience. So thanks a lot, Charlie.
Thanks.
See you, bud.
Let's go.